This, ladies and gentlemen, is a big deal. This is the brand new Aprilia RS 457, a make or break product for Aprilia motorcycles in the country. Now, you have seen this motorcycle enough times in the past few months, and they've also put a price tag on it, which at 4.10 lakh ex-showroom is quite impressive. Now, what we don't know so far is how it rides and handles. But that's all going to change today, because we are at a racetrack and we are going to be putting this cut price Aprilia RS through its paces. Before we get on with the ride impressions, well, first let's talk about the design and styling of the RS 457. Now, we have already covered it in detail in our previous videos, so if you want to check that out, you can click the link above and you can check that in-depth first look review of the RS 457. But what I want to talk about is the quality levels and the color options that are available with the 457. Now, there are three color options. You've got the one that's classic Aprilia racing colors. So you've got a black with red stripes all over, and it has loud Aprilia branding as well. The other one is the white one, which also looks quite good. The finish on that is really beautiful and it stands out as well. But my favorite is this one. This is the prismatic dark, and on the surface it appears as if it's black, but this actually has multiple colors, as in it has got different hues, because on the tank you'll see in direct sunlight it appears as if it has got this shiny purple finish, and on the side, on the fairing, it seems it has a mix of purple and green, and definitely it is the most stylish if you ask me. Now, in terms of fit and finish levels, I think Aprilia has done a commendable job, because it is quite good on this motorcycle. Of course, it's not the best and there are some rough edges, as in the engine casing you'll see here. It doesn't seem to have that sheen, that finish that you'd expect in a 4 lakh above motorcycle. But overall, I have to say they've done a very good job with this motorcycle, and it looks like a proper Aprilia. It feels like a proper Aprilia as well. Now, in terms of accessibility, I think this is a great motorcycle. It feels very natural. It has got this large tank and it sort of gives you that super sport riding position. Now, the clip-on handlebars, they're not low, as in they're not very sporty. They are sort of up. They don't give you that committed riding position, but it still is quite aggressive. The other thing is, again, the foot pegs, they are slightly rear set, but they are not rear set to the point where you feel cramped or they give stress on your wrist. So in that regard also, I think this is a very great super sport motorcycle, as in one that's meant for the road. The other thing is, it has got a seat height of 800 millimeters. So even short riders will find it easy to flat foot this motorcycle and wheel it at low speeds. So in that regard, I think this is a very practical and very easy motorcycle as such. As for its weight, it weighs around 175 kilograms. That's a wet weight. It has a fuel tank of 13 liters. And I think that is also great for a twin cylinder motorcycle. So overall, what you can say is that it feels like a proper super sport. The weight is absolutely spot on. It is quite accessible, quite easy to live with on an everyday basis, and even though it looks very sporty like an RS motorcycle, but in reality it's not that aggressive. It has that nice balance. It feels spot on. The other thing that I have to talk about is the features and equipment on offer. So again, we have discussed it in detail, but it gets a 5-inch TFT display. You get 3 riding modes. It has got ABS that's switchable again, and you've also got traction control, and it has got full LED headlamps. They look quite nice. They come with integrated indicators. So overall, I think Aprilia hasn't left any stone unturned to make this motorcycle feel premium, to make this motorcycle feel like a proper Aprilia. So in the looks department, I think I'd give it a solid 10 out of 10, because I absolutely love how this motorcycle looks and there's no bad angle to it.
Let's go. I was born to kill it. I was meant to win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire.
So I have finally ridden the RS45 on the Kari Motor Speedway, and I'm going to talk about each and every component that matters in detail one by one. Now let's start with the engine, which is the star of the show. This is a twin cylinder 457cc parallel twin engine. It produces around 47.5 bhp and 43.5 newton meters of torque. Now that is a lot of power, and it definitely shows on the road as well, because this motor has a lot of performance. But unlike other parallel twins that you might have experienced before, this is not a peaky motor, in the sense it's not that all the power is concentrated towards the top end. In fact, it feels like a bigger L-twin engine because this has got a very strong low and mid-range as well. So of course we got to ride it for a very limited time, but it is quite apparent that this motorcycle will also shine in the city, especially this engine, because it has got that grunt. So even in the tight corners, I was carrying a lot of speed, and as soon as you open the throttle, well, you can feel that there is a lot of torque, and it flows in quite thick, because you always feel that there is so much power in reserve, and you don't really have to wait for that performance to come. Now the other thing that I really loved about this engine is that, of course, it is a little gruff. It's not smooth all the way, but it is very flexible, and you can be in any gear. The gearbox is also quite good. The quick shifter is supposed to be there. It was not on this bike because this is box standard, and the quick shifter is optional. We don't yet know the cost of that, but again, coming back to the gearbox, it is very nice. All the gears are very well judged, and like I was saying, it is quite flexible. And the gearbox, well, you can be in fourth gear and you'd see speeds of up to 140 or 150 kilometers per hour on the main straight. But at the same time, if you are doing low speeds, you can pick it up from as low as 50 kilometers per hour in fourth gear or even in fifth gear. And it doesn't feel like you're lugging the engine, because it has that sort of wide power band where you can ride it everywhere very smoothly. So there were instances where I was riding it on the track in just fourth gear. I didn't feel the need to shift down or up, because fourth gear just felt perfect, even on a tight layout as of the Kari Motor Speedway. But I was really impressed with how grunty and how flexible this engine feels. So for me, this is definitely one of the main highlights of this motorcycle. And like I said, it does feel complete in all respects, and in all riding conditions, it will be a great motor for sure. Next up, the frame and the suspension. Now this is the department where this motorcycle impressed me the most, because to be honest, I was thinking this is not going to be as aggressive or as sporty as a regular Aprilia, because it's made in India and it's made for a particular audience. But on the track, I think it really surprised me, pleasantly surprised me with its handling, and more importantly, its agility, because this feels like a proper super sport motorcycle. The way it flicks from one direction to other, well, I think it is one of the best handling motorcycles in the segment for sure. What I also love about this bike's handling is that it feels quite agile in terms of turning. It is very quick, and that's down to its short wheelbase and sharp geometry. Of course, like I said previously, it's not really a committed racer, but even then the ergonomics felt perfect. Of course, if you want a more sporty riding experience, you'd have to go for lower clip-on bars, and the foot pegs have to be moved a little more back. But otherwise, the standard setup is also brilliant for everyday usage, and even for the racetrack. I felt this motorcycle has the potential to be one of the best, or I think it's probably the best. Now, having said that, I have to say that it's not really a very sporty handling motorcycle like the KTM RC390. Well, that's more committed for sure, but I'd say this falls somewhere in between the KTM RC390 and the Apache RR310 and the Yamaha R3, which is its more direct rival, which is also a twin cylinder motorcycle. But again, the balance is spot on, and I think in that regard, I was really surprised with the suspension as well, because it doesn't have excessive dive or it doesn't feel soft or wallowy. It's just perfect. And the best part about the motorcycle is how easy it feels when you're changing direction, and how forgiving this motorcycle is. The power delivery is aggressive at times, that I have to give it to the engine. So sometimes you whack open the throttle and the engine just kind of blurts out all the power, but the chassis is so great that it kind of forgives your misdeeds. And I think that's what I love about this motorcycle, because the engine has got a lot of character, but the chassis is so good that it balances out. It kind of forgives you for whatever the engine does. So you can definitely take liberties with this motorcycle, and the chassis will always be saving your face. That's what I think. It is perfect. Now again, for the suspension, it gets a 41mm upside down fork at the front, and you've got a monoshock at the back. Now both the suspensions, even the front one, has got preload adjustability, and that's a great thing. You can fiddle with it according to your weight and you can change it. So there is some sort of adjustability. Again, the suspension is not fully adjustable for compression and rebound, but I don't think you need it on this motorcycle because the standard setup feels quite great. So overall, if I have to summarize the experience, the riding experience on the racetrack, I thought this felt perfect. There is nothing to complain about in terms of ride and handling, because this motorcycle definitely is one of the best, if not the best, in the segment. Next up are the brakes, and I think these are probably the weakest link in an otherwise great package. Now why I say that, of course, in terms of hardware, it has got everything. It has got a 320mm front disc, you've got 220mm at the back, there's a 4-piston radial caliper, so it has got everything on paper. But when you ride it on the track, especially at high speeds and when you're doing really hard braking, there was some sort of brake fade, and it was not just in one motorcycle, it was on a lot of motorcycles that a lot of journalists also complained. So the brakes, well, of course, when you ride it hard for a couple of laps, you'll notice that it doesn't have the bite that you need on a motorcycle this powerful, because the top speed on this motorcycle is close to 180, that I forgot to mention earlier. But yeah, it is a powerful motorcycle, so you expect the brakes to have more bite for sure. The other reason for that is that it gets organic pads, it doesn't get sintered pads, so maybe it's something that Aprilia will change in the future. But for the time being, the brakes, even though they are adequate, you really want some more bite from them. Last but not the least, the tires. Now this comes short with Eurogrip Pro Torque tires, and even though they are made in India, you might expect that these are a compromise, but that's not the case, because these are really brilliant tires. The grip levels are quite good, and even on the racetrack when you're pushing the motorcycle, I felt they were quite good. Personally, I didn't feel any compromise on that front. So if that's the case on the track, I think on the road where you're not going to be riding at such high speeds, or you're not going to be doing crazy corner speeds, I think these tires are just going to do fine, and you can surely trust these tires. You know, there are some motorcycles that don't look great on paper, but in the real world they are quite good. In fact, they kind of overwhelm you with their performance. And then there are those motorcycles which look great on paper but are underwhelming in the real world. But the Aprilia RS 457 that we have here falls in none of those categories, because this is a motorcycle that looks great on paper, and when you get to ride it, it surpasses your expectations even more, because in the real world it's just overwhelming. And that's what I think about the RS 457, because when I first saw this motorcycle in the flesh also, I was thinking there's going to be some compromise, because it's made in India, it's priced really brilliantly. So I was looking for that one compromise that this motorcycle has, and I thought it's not going to feel like a proper Aprilia RS motorcycle. But I've been proven wrong, because today when I rode this motorcycle on the track, I thought it has those Aprilia RS genes, because it feels like a proper super sport motorcycle. And I've been using this word super sport, I've been banging on and on about this since morning, but that's what it feels like. Every time you sit on it, every time you look at it, it feels like a proper sports bike for sure. So I think in terms of design, in terms of handling, in terms of engine performance, it has got everything covered. Yes, a lot of equipment on it is not standard, especially the quick shifter, which I think should have been standard on the bike. But given the price at 4.10 lakh, I think this is a steal, because the nearest competition to this motorcycle is the Yamaha R3, which is priced at an absurd 4.65 lakh, and then you have got the Ninja 400, which is also quite expensive. So compared to those two, this not only feels more complete, but it also feels the best of the lot. And overall, I have to say that if you have been sitting on the fence, I don't think you should look any further. You should just go get one immediately.
When they get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share it with your family and friends. And let us know in the comment section if you like the Aprilia RS 457. And soon we are also going to be riding it out in the real world. So stay tuned to our channel for a full-length road test review of this motorcycle.